a shooter. By the way you're handling the gun, gambling you're done. Shells burn like candles in the sun. I'm not a fan of gun violence, nor having a strap, but get popped once, and I swear that you'll be scrambling for one. But our plans was to get funds and skate off the set, so I mixed the kush with the dro to make all my weight stretch. I'm from with a dudes rob and argue all day about who's the best MC, Saha Stacks and T.I. while dodging the GBI. My bad, I love GZI, but I'm still the best to ever do it, and I ain't even put a CD out. So the next time you say that I ain't got no lyricists, I just think you ain't got a taste for this exquisite shit. My verses are like Leviticus to the underprivileged. I make music for the world, you make music for a stripper bitch. Nick Black leather, parade cap era, guns at your capital, take it to that measure. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. Never been a victim, a rebel against the system. Lames wanna diss them and women just wanna kiss them. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. It's that God flow, what they nailed Jesus to the cross for. And he came back 3 days after he died flow. This Pablo, talking to kids in Chicago, mob flow. This that midget New Jersey drive flow. Side note, I wrote this rap with my eyes closed, bravo. Cause it came out clean as the Moss flow, Costco. Hoes selling they twat for a car no. Benny Hunters and Roscoe, Picasso. Knives mixed with a pop flow. Rappers can't stand me. This that Grammy knife flow. Let me stop though, cause I'm going digital with the syllables. Saw the prince and the royalty like residual. These hoes for me, they supposed to be hospitable. When they in the house with a nigga that's not typical, this not fictional. I run this bitch like elliptical. Can another rapper come out of Atlanta if he not lyrical? Nigga, black leather, parade cap era, guns at your capital, take it to that measure. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. Never been a victim, a rebel against the system. Lames wanna diss them and women just wanna kiss them. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga.
This that shot right, where out of towners die at. I advise you book your flight now and fly back. Gangland, bang then, what you claim, fam? Box Chevys, foreigns, buck 50 flow. Young nigga got bitches at the 50 though. 50 pack done, good, drop off 50 more. My city rough, but I made it in it. Trap house look like it's what K's invented. Trust nobody, even friends, look, I hate up in it. Riding dirty with your bitch, smoking, wait a minute. LA garage with Illinois and Decatur in it. Nigga snitching, I'm like, way to win it. Nigga looking like a state defendant. Photo look like a two though. My two though look like a full though. I'm cutting up, call me Zorro. Hit him in his mask, get him a body bag. Give me a track, and I'ma body that.
Salute. Peace to the fam. Peace to the fam. It's your brother Sutek, Akande Yanu Olawa. I see y'all up late. So I want to start doing these rewind sessions because we have so much work. Collectively, KPRT, the Masi, and even on Brother Shawn, Channel Science with Shawn, like some of this stuff is relevant today still in these discussions that we're having. So as of right now, I see, not a coincidence. And Brother Shawn has been dealing with the elbows. So I thought this was pertinent information to review, go back over this. So like the show, share the show. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. This is part one of a two-part discussion. The second part we might go over tomorrow, depending on what any of the brothers had going on. I don't know if anybody going to go live tomorrow. But if not, then, hey, I'll be back for the part two. But let's get it. Like the show, share the show.
and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. Yeah.
Log in to KofiPaisatTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisai Research Team. From Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisai Research Team. Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisai Research Team. One Night Before Bed by Any Harek Shawn Calfunny. Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisai. From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harek Shawn Calfunny. As I learned, we all learn by Kofi Paisai. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisatTV.com.
ETM Hotel, Rennie, Shawn, welcome in peace. My name is Shawn. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into today's show. We have myself, Brother Chris, T'Challa, Kofi, Setep and Rob, Mariaman in the building. Sutek will be joining us later. It seems like he making a store run. Y'all know how that go. Yeah, we just bringing over a conversation that we had in the back to the front. No real arguments or anything like that. It's just a build between us, and we just want to kind of have some things out, some unsaid things, some questions and concerns, some comments from around the board. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass the mic over to Brother T'Challa. Let him go ahead and introduce himself. You on mute, T'Challa. We gonna go ahead and let Chris go because T'Challa's slow.
He might have walked away from the mic.
Well, okay. Well, go ahead, Chris.
Hey, so can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. Good.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm gonna just bring out a name.
Nah. We just introducing ourselves right now.
We just okay. I'm Chris Marshall. I'm the co-founder and director of research of the Ami African Collective. Also, my other YouTube, my personal YouTube is Chronicles of Niggatry. I got a Patreon where I basically run, I put together a crazy archives and I help people find out of print books, which kind of goes with, the discussion today. And yeah, that's pretty much who I am. Chronicles of Niggatry. And of course, there's the Ami African, collective.
All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and let this dude who's supposed to be cooking something introduce himself. And if we need to translate, I'll translate after he get done.
Yeah, real country grandma over here. But first I want to say ETM Hotel. That means bring forth peace. Do our aku, do our netra. Fatmu Alafie. Fatmu Iwa Pele. Majuba Iba E Gungun, Majuba Iba E Gungun, Majuba Iba E Lakba, Majuba Iba E Lakba, Gungun Kiki Gungun. We always want to give honor and praises to the ancestors, because without the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. We are our ancestors. I want y'all to keep that in mind too, for people
be saying what they've been saying. We always give honor and praises to the ancestors. Also, we like to extend honor and praises to the true and living elders according to an African worldview and from an African perspective, man. I am your brother, Kofi Paisai, and welcome to Kofi Paisai TV, and I'm out. Oh, shit.
Yeah, so you was doing way too much right there.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to go.
Tyler said peace. He said peace to the chat. He'll come in a minute and build along with Sutet and this Sertima ride. You know what I'm saying? He handling something real quick too. So I'm sure he's gonna chime in just a second. So without further ado, we're gonna let Brother Chris, you know what I'm saying? Since he got his gun loaded, we're gonna let Brother Chris go ahead and shoot his shots.
All right, let me go to this one. I'm gonna start off with this one. Let me get it. Okay, this is Van Sertima talking about the Olmec stoneheads in African presence in early America. So let me, if y'all can see that. Shout out to the ancestor. So quoting Beatrice de la Fuentes, he says, no, she said, this is Van Sertima quoting Beatrice de la Fuentes. If in some moment one happened to ponder on the existence of Negroes in early Mesoamerica, such a thought would surely occur after you have seen the head at Tres Zapatas 2, the most remote in physiognomy from our indigenous ancestors. The elevated position of this personage is revealed in the headdress, from the back of which dangles seven bands which figure braids that taper off into rings and tassels. My translation. So, I mean, part of what I wanted to do was add, another name in there, right? Because, one of the things he says, going up a little further, right? He says, it was brought to my attention in 1984 by Wayne Chandler and Gaynell Catherine, who had rephotographed it from the archives in 1985 while spending a week in Mexico at the house of my friend Alexander von Wuthenau, who he drew my attention to its description in a Spanish work, Las Cabezas Colossus Olmecas by Beatrice de la Fuente. So that was the book that he got it from. So, I mean, basically starting off, my argument is just simply saying that I know Shawn had an issue with Leo Weiner, who was the Russian dude who according to Shawn, was making some off claims, but I wanted to ground my argument in the updated version, because I'm not even going to deal with they came before Columbus. But I'm gonna just start off there, and Shawn can, just retort to that. And I don't know if Beatrice is somebody who will be characterized as, pseudo. So Shawn can respond to that.
All right. So first we have to deal with the actual argument from the root, right? Because we're dealing with sources. So when we deal with Van Sertima's work, it's okay for Beatrice, which would be a tertiary source, to build on Van Sertima's information, which is a problem in its own self, because if you don't go behind and correct the errors in the work, then it's all for naught. So for the listening audience, I'm gonna make it simple. And then I'm gonna make it simple, and then I'm gonna build the case from this perspective, right? So they came before Columbus, the African presence in ancient America, 1976. All right, this book, Van Sertima explores his theory. Now, let's keep it in context. His theory The Africans made landfall and had significant influence on the native people of Mesoamerica, primarily the Olmec civilization. Van Sertima accomplishes this through chapters relying heavily on dramatic storytelling. This technique, as well as ambiguity of the evidence of Van Sertima use, have led the acceptance of his work as pseudoscience and pseudo-archaeology. This work was published by Random House and did not go through a peer review process. I'm not really concerned about this back end part of it right here, because to me, his peers would be those who are in the same field of study as he, but also are, respectable people on the said subject. And I'm gonna talk about his peers, because his peers relied on his work. And his peers, like you hear people like Dr. John Henry Clark, you hear correspondence between him and Dr. Diop, the great elder Chancellor Williams, John G. Jackson, right? And I'm gonna throw another name out there, Schomburg. Although Schomburg didn't rely on Ivan Van Sertima, Schomburg relied and introduced people to the source that Ivan Van Sertima used, which is Leo Wiener. Because this is the premise of They Came Before Columbus, is based on the premise of work from the Russian Jew Leo Wiener, as well as a couple of other storytelling sources that are relevant in the work that was projected as factual data. Now, continues to say Van Sertima reached larger audiences through chapters narrated by figures of the past, including Christopher Columbus and the Mali king Abukari II. All right. Now, this is the first problem in the whole They Came Before Columbus. It's Bakari II. When you go and you deal with the Mali's king list, I'm not going to get into it, but if you check out Spears of the Mossi Volume 3, we talk about Mansa Musa and his reign and his coming into kingship, and also this person, Abukari II. Now, in doing this, the primary source anecdotes of often evidence cited by Van Sertima combined with inferences and exaggerations, though he implies to his readers that the narrative is based in fact. Now, he does this, and I can play the video clip. In chapter 5, along with among the Quetzal Codex, Van Sertima narrates the arrival of Abukari II to an Aztec civilization in 1311, describing the Mali king as a true child of the sun, burned dark by its rays, and directive explicit comparisons to Aztec sun god Quetzalcoatl, however you say his name, this person. As Van Sertima writes, this interaction is not rooted in historical evidence, and Van Sertima does not offer a cited source to back up his narrative. This is one of the many examples of Van Sertima's theories that Mesoamerican mythologies are based on pre-Columbian African contact theories. Okay, so if we're going to introduce Beatrice, she would have to deal with Abukari II. And then when we get into the King's list, we're going to run into some issues with the King's list, because the story of Abukari II does not exist in the traditions and the culture of West Africans in Mali, specifically because it was never heard in Mali. The first place it was heard is in Cairo, Egypt, when Mansa Musa is telling the story to then the king, an Arabic king, and on how he came to throne. And let me come off this real quick, and let me cut my camera on, start sharing my screen. And I want to open up the book real quick. As you can see here, Spears of the Mossi. I want to open up the book because I want you to know in the book it's 3 different kings lists, and they're there for a reason. It's 3 different kings lists, right? Look at it. The genealogy of the kings of Mali based on the chronicle of Ibn Khaldun. So this is dealing with Khaldun's work. All right. So if we're going to deal with Sertima in the retrospect to his first claim dealing with Al-Bukhari, the second, we have to look at the Arabic sources and deal with the Arabic sources which narrate. No Arabic source actually wrote anything in regard to Al-Bukhari the second. Okay? Before the story is told. The story is told in Cairo, and this is where the story became famous. All right, so just to reiterate, it goes. This is how the story goes, and I'm gonna read page 235 of the book. If you have Spears of the Mossy, it's in the first chapter, but this is the revised, and this is we got to rearrange. So it says, here's the story. The king who was my predecessor did to believe that it was impossible to discover the furthest limit of the Atlantic Ocean and wished vehemently to do so. So he equipped 200 ships filled with men and the same number equipped with gold, water, provisions enough to last them for years, and said to the man deputy to lead them, do not return until you reach the end of it, or your provisions and water give out. They departed, and a long time passed before anyone came back. Then one ship returned, and we asked the captain what news they brought. He said, yes, O Sultan, we traveled for a long time until there appeared in the open sea, as it were, a river with a powerful current. Mine was the last of those ships. The other ships went on ahead, but when they reached that place, they did not return, and no more was seen of them, and we do not know what became of them. As for me, I went about at once and did not enter that river, but the Sultan disbelieved him. Then the Sultan got ready 2,000 ships, 1,000 for himself and the men whom he took with him, and 1,000 for water and provisions. He left me to deputize for him and embark on the Atlantic Ocean with his men. That was the last we saw of him and all of those who were with him. And so I became king in my own right. That is the story from Mansa Musa in Cairo, Egypt. And he told the story as such. So when we deal with the Mali Kings list, we deal with the actual story and we deal with maritime travel. We do not show an actual premise. We don't have the actual, my bad, not premise. We do not have the actual archaeological evidence to show that Malians knew how to travel the waters. There was no traveling the Atlantic because of crosswinds. If we look back in time, if we look right off the coast of West Africa right now, near Cape Verde, there's a crosswind current that exists still to this day. And if you just have a sail and not the technology that has advanced on these ships to allow them to kind of wiggle their way through those type of cross currents, your ship will go in all directions, sending you in a circle. So Beatrice would have to correct article number 1 of the actual claim that Al-Bukhari II even existed and that he even traveled. And then she would have to show archaeological evidence to prove that Malians built ships when we know, in fact, they only built canoes. The second narrative we can deal with a little later because that's going to deal with ancient Kemet. But I'm gonna shut up right there, and then I'm gonna yield the floor to my brothers.
Oh, but Shawn, I do have a question. Where does Ramesses, right, or Rafik Jazaboy come into play? Because I'm curious because it says Bart Jordan is not working on a report of such, coincidental measures regarding Old World and New World edifices, which we hope to publish in a later edition of this book. Okay, Rafik Jazaboy dates that the coming of Egyptians to America in the era of Ramesses. So I remember you talking about when they said he pushed back, the time period. And I guess Alexander von Wuthenau, he followed that scenario. And then he says, I had opted for the later phase of the radiocarbon dating of the ceremonial platform at La Venta, where the first sequence of the colossal stoneheads were found. So, because he said I had concentrated, and they came before Columbus on the twilight. He said on the twilight phase of the Bronze Age. This I saw then as the most likely period of contact since the blocking of the Asiatic sea routes by the Assyrians in the quest for tin, copper, purple dye, and iron encouraged the drift of fleets west of the Mediterranean towards the Atlantic. So I mean, I guess to add to the conversation, where does Ramesses and the different time period add in? How does that work within the overall conversation?
All right, so let's do this. Let's get Ramesses pulled up. We all know Ramesses is a 19th dynastic period king, right? Of ancient Kemet. It's saying his reign ruled anywhere between 1279 to 1213 BC. Now that's before Common Era.
Mm-hmm.
So let's put that in perspective.
Okay.
We just went from Al-Bukhari II, which is 1311 AD, which is current. So we're literally talking about 710 years ago. Now we got to add 710 years ago, and then add on top of that another almost 2,000 years, or close to 2,000 years on top of that, right? Because we're going backwards. So now we're dealing with we're dealing with the Remech, and we're dealing with a ruler, Ramesses the Great, in his time period. Now, one thing that we do know about this time period is that there were some things going on that would forbid a travel to a new world. First, we don't have any record of them writing about traveling to a distant place and coming across any people and doing trade. Second, we don't. Second, we're talking 19th dynastic period, and what could be happening? Wars. They're at war. So I don't know how Ramesses comes about in a period where he taking it to the Libyans and the Hyksos. You know what I mean? He trying to control things. He actually, and this is really where Sertima come in, because this is his pride and joy right here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it from like just that, because he really studied on everything else, but when it comes to Ramesses II and them dang on cartouches or the Chinooks, this is his lane, and we yield the floor to Sertima when it comes to that, because he gonna tell you some things about it, So we don't see it written on any papyrus or on the walls of ancient Kemet about any maritime time, especially in a year where they're fighting wars. Why would we be traveling abroad and we are at war? That's less men that he needs to fight in his army. And that's never brought up or spoken of. However, it's mentioned because of two things: cocaine mummies, tobacco in the stomach. So when I showed the evidence regarding the cocaine mummies and the tobacco era, that was to dismiss the actual claims and bring it back to more evidence is required, which is not present in the argument of a Ramesses doing any type of business or trade, or anyone in his party doing any type of business or trade with people that ain't even been discovered before. So this is where the boat of Ra comes up. And this is a claim made by many people trying to substantiate the Remech being able to actually travel to the New World. Well, if you're familiar with the Remech, they built boats that can travel along the Nile, up and down the Nile. They knew how to do that. And if you think about the Nile is not the ocean. It's the Nile River. Could they get into the Mediterranean? It's a sea. It is not an ocean, meaning that you can get to the bottom of the floor quicker in these areas than you can in the Atlantic. So the current is not as swift and strong in a sea or a river than it is in the ocean. So they built this so-called demonstration boat of the boat of Ra that they put together, and it never really made it. It got halfway through the Atlantic, and then all of a sudden it was ripped to shreds. This is with modern technology. Now they so-called say that they used this reeds, papyrus reeds, and a whole lot of things that was in the area of ancient Kemet to create a boat, so to say, and then to put a little sail on it or whatever that they actually used. Long story short, the boat deflated. It was not a success. It didn't make it. So people then say, well, the genius of ancient Kemet, they built great pyramids, they did all these other things. How come they couldn't build a boat or ship? It wasn't a need for them to do that. Everything they needed was in their own lands. And where they stretched beyond their own lands and they showed their presence, they left evidence. What evidence would that be? If we look toward Canaan, right? Who do we see in Canaan around that time period? Ramesses II. We see there's this, let me see if I can get y'all to see this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but here's the archaeological evidence right here. When the pharaohs ruled Canaan. Mm-hmm. All right. This edition is July 2017. And if you look here, Egypt's final redoubt in Canaan. And it says right here, Ramesses II. If you look right here, there's an archaeological dig that has taken place. And right here in the sesh, it's got his name written and his presence written all throughout Canaan. And you deal with this time period, and it's telling you off the rip. It says, for 3 centuries, Egyptians ruled the land of Canaan. Armies of chariots and 10,000 foot soldiers under the pharaoh Thutmose III. Well, this is the third right here. And then you got Ramesses II stuff showing up over there as well. But it goes on and it continues to talk about all of this stuff. Now, remember, I started out saying for 3 centuries. So when we get to looking at the archaeological evidence, they got stuff going on. They got wars. They got wars along with the Hyksos because they foreign rules. They trying to come in and rule. We talking about they were there in the 15 dynastic period. Some of them was enslaved and still present. Some of them was fighting to get back over there. So there's a lot of things that were going on in that time period to say, all right, let me get away from fighting all of this and then trying to go up to Canaan and go over here and dealing with the Hyksos, and let me go travel to a new world where I never been, and then I'm gonna do trade with them and get some tobacco. No. We know, just like the mummies, that the tobacco and the cocaine were misrepresentations of someone tampering with evidence. So then we get back to that second part of that argument, and I'm gonna share the screen again because you had brought that up, and we'll deal with what they continue to say right here, because here go the additional narrative. Van Sertima does devote a considerable portion of the book to interaction of cultures within Africa, as well as chapter 7 and 8 titled Black Africa and Egypt. And he says, the Black kings of the now look. Now, we just talked about Ramesses, right? Because they talk about Ramesses from aspects, but then here he goes. The Black kings of the 25th dynasty, in which he explores the West and Southern African man's influence on ancient Egyptian civilization. He devotes chapter 8 to discussing the beneficial innovations and flourishing of culture and Nubian rulers in Egypt. These chapters serve to support his argument of contributions African cultures, specifically Black African cultures, have made to the world and civilizations. See, then we get diffusionism, right? When I always bring the word out, hyper-diffusionism, right? Because now he's going to continue to make the argument, and they came before Columbus, that basically these people got these things from high African civilizations and culture without any evidence.
Yeah, Shawn.
Go ahead.
Now, with just pointing out how, I'm asking how, if he's saying Ramesses, them get over there, did they have they didn't have technology at that. They didn't have the proper technology to get across the Atlantic Sea at that time. I'm correct, right?
No, the correct technology was not found until the 15th century AD.
Right, correct. So with me reading that, I would have already threw that out the door because I know the technology didn't exist at that point of time. So I knew I would know that Ramesses and them did not make it to the America or make it across that Atlantic, that crucial Atlantic Sea, at that time. So I mean, I just wanted to throw that out there, man, because I mean, we have to go back and study too. Well, not even go back and study too, or go back and look at. You did a great presentation on. I don't remember what the name of the presentation was, where you lay out who and what time period they created this technology to get across the Atlantic Ocean. So I mean, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I did that presentation, which is on the Masi, regarding that technology and other technology that went about that for that specific reason. That was to build on the argument that at the time my Masi warrior brother and colleague Class of Shabazz had already orchestrated and laid out a couple of strong points regarding portions of Mansa Musa's story, and then some critical evidence of Leo Weiner, and that was just to add to that at that time. And then I had built on the research for Spears Spears of the Masi, Spiritual Combat, Volume 3, because it needed to be more clear to the to people who are concerned with the story of Mansa Musa, what actually had taken place. Because when you talk to people, they're literally thinking that this story that Mansa Musa told in Cairo actually comes out of West Africa and was told to somebody else. It was never introduced to Malians. This wasn't a story that crept through West Africa.
So what story is that you saying? Are you saying that? Is you talking about the story when his brother and them supposedly set sail and went into the Americas?
Correct. Okay. That story was not told anywhere until it was mentioned on the world stage in front of Cairo, which was a political move by Mansa Musa. That whole trip to Cairo was for him to do two things: politically expand the Malian empire and control over certain trade areas, and he needed the authority and the blessings of at the time the Arabs who were in Cairo ruling, and also to make a presence known. That hey, like, we really doing big business down here in Mali. It's kind of like, a dude just hit him a lick in the hood, and next thing you know, a couple of weeks later, he's shining. And you just seen him the other day with flat broke bet asking you for 100. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that. Like, he had his opportunity to shine because he did some things that got him to where he was trying to get to. And along the way, he was trying to, pay his debt off for what he did. But we don't find Abakari II trailing. So it's important that we follow the evidence and we deal with the King's List. But I'm gonna yield again and let anybody else who want to build on it go, and then I want to bring up a crucial point.
Well, I just got one more thing. Then, like, okay, with the story, that popular story, his brothers coming into America. Where that? Because I never found that. I done heard the story a couple of times, read it, and never found any information to back. Because I even have a Moorish brother. I mean, and I hear a lot of Moorish brothers talk about this same story of Mansa Musa brothers and them coming into America. We already been over here in America pre-Columbus. Where is there evidence? Because I hadn't found it. Where is the evidence to substantiate that Mansa Musa brothers now came over here to the Americas? I mean, you hear the story, but where is the evidence? Where is the evidence of them making it across that fierce Atlantic Ocean and them arriving into the Atlanta? Where is the logs? Where is the journals?
All right, so this is where it gets murky, because at the time you don't have them writing per se like that until the Arabs come, right? So you got to rely on Arabic sources in order to substantiate. Second, don't make Al-Bukhari II his brother or anything like that. You can say, because if you look at the lineage lines, these people are underneath the same lineage line. Something transpired politically that allowed Mansa Musa to so-called come into kinship and rule of Mali. This is why T'Challa ain't playing a djembe song that contributes anything to Mansa Musa. And I don't want to get a whole chapter away, in a book, because I want people to really get the book, not only for that, but all the other evidence and jewels that we drop from the first to the last. But there's some intricate pieces that go along to what we got going on that center the entire argument based off those claims. But no, you don't get evidence there's no real evidence in that. The evidence is, and will always remain, the story comes from Mansa Musa in Cairo during his trip to Mecca. That is the first time the story is told. It's not told by and man, I don't want to say that, but okay, all right. It's not told by any Jelle. If anybody knows what a Jelle is, then I don't want to say the actual translation of the name, but I'm just going to say Jelle. And I want y'all to understand I'm saying Jelle for a reason. And I'm not saying the other one because you will think about it. But no Jelle is telling this story. So it's not being passed down as historical information from one generation to another. There's other stories. You have the Jelle. The Jelle speak highly about one person in particular, the one person who helped lead the way for Mali to rule and do everything that they need to do. And then everything else, nobody else measures up to this one, this particular person. And I don't want to say that person's name because I want people to read the book. But I'm gonna let y'all go real quick while I cue this up.
I'm going through. So I think one point that is important, let me go back to Early America Revisited, because I'm getting into the responses and whatnot. Let me go where you said, no, wait. Just double check. Hold up. No, hold up. Hold up. Is it Early Presence? Let me make sure it's this one. Hold up. Because an important point he brought up, where is it? This is him, responding to a Von Wuthenau, right? The what is this? This is like is this a Mexican artist? Let me see. Because he's talking about, but he was saying it might be a Spanish artist, but anyway, he said it is relatively easy for historians to reconstruct early passages of European history from the written document because Europe had the good fortune to maintain an archival continuity. In spite of all its wars, its libraries were not destroyed. Yet here in America, as you have just pointed out, you have a virtual absence of documents. As in the case of Africa, my friend, it was not the lack of writing, as most people want to believe, but a destruction, an almost systematic destruction of documents. So I guess just to kind of, make it clear, Van Sertima was making it clear that he was mainly going off of the artifacts because he said it was hard to find the written documents. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I guess one of the people who was defending his argument was Kofi Wangara, also known as Harold Lawrence. Let me go. Hold up. Let me make sure I'm in the. Hold up. Oh, let me make sure. And because he goes over what Shawn just touched on with Abukar, because I'm looking at the names and whatnot. Because they also tried to make the argument about the sweet potato, saying that the sweet potato came from Africa. Let me see. What did he say? Large fleets of Almadias were not uncommon to West Africa. Okay, but that's still dealing with the Muslim time. Okay. Let me see. Hold on. Let me get into. All right. Let me get into. And I think one thing. Hold up. That's the other thing I want to. I keep getting. Another thing I want to make clear is that when Shekat to Joke was responding, okay, that's in this one. Damn, okay. When he was responding, he made it clear that he used the word hypothesis. So I think that's an important distinction to make. Let me see. Because one of the things he argued, I'm bouncing around, but one of the things he argued that Van Sertima would have issues because you could argue that tobacco was being used simultaneously in Africa and in the Americas. So I guess one of the things I want to make sure of is that people are reading this work, picking it apart, and understanding that based on what I'm kind of going over in the various books is that in a lot of cases they simply didn't know. So a lot of this was a hypothesis. So it's not to try to make it seem like it was just it was 100%, but it's something that was ongoing.
That's key. That's key, Chris. That's key. A lot of people need to understand that he made a hypothesis. So, okay. I just want to throw that out.
Oh yeah. And then to kind of clear the air, we gotta kind of separate what Tariq Nasheed and a lot of the Moors are saying and what Van Sertima actually wrote. So I want to make it clear that I'm simply going through and reading, the ancestors' work, but I'm not necessarily agreeing with the Tariq Nasheeds and the Moors are talking about, because what we got to understand is that Van Sertima would say there was African influence in the Americas, whereas Tariq Nasheed and Sabir Bey will say that the Aboriginals and the African people are all the same people. And even to put a little caveat, there are people who, some of our ancestors were enslaved by indigenous folks, because a lot of stuff is is a lot more complex, right? So you did have you did have indigenous people who had African slaves, and I'm talking about more recently. So I'm saying that you do have people some people do have native ancestry, but that doesn't mean that indigenous people and African people are the same people, because the same way we got white blood is the same way we got indigenous blood. And I mean, but then again, it depends on the time period. So by no means am I arguing that we are foundational Black Americans or indigenous people, but simply you know, going through the argument that Van Sertima had. And I know, unfortunately, due to Hidden Colors, there's a lot of confusion. So that's kind of why we're doing this, to really clear the air, because what Van Sertima wrote versus what, Tariq Nasheed put out in a movie is completely different. So that's why it's important to read the scholarship. But y'all go ahead.
All right. So let me deal with this real quick. And I can put it on the screen. It's off of the Masi, so we ain't gonna get no strike on this. It's our stuff. So I want to replay this because this is key in all of this. It's part of the video.
And then comes the oral evidence in Mali. They speak of a king, Abu Bakr II, who wanted to cross the ocean because he felt there was land beyond. And he appeared. The Mexicans report this strange black man in white robes appearing. And it is also reported by the Arabs because Mansour Musa went to Cairo. He's a Muslim, and he went to Cairo. When he was in Cairo, he talked about, they asked him, what happened to your brother? And he told him that he wanted to cross the ocean and he never came back. And it's recorded by the Arabs in Al-Kashandi and the Masalik al-Absar, Fir Mamalik al-Amsar. So that's the documented evidence. Then there's the icon of...
All right. So he about to stop the video, but he's talking about a king's list. And this is the reason why on page 260 of Spiritual Combat, we methodically drop 3 kings lists to show the route. Now, one of them you probably can't see too good. I probably can update that. But to show and prove that these lineage lines are suspect, because as anyone, if you know anything about like the people of the forest, right? Like the hunters, right? You have the hunters, and then you have like these kings or whatnot. Now I'm saying this, I'm trying to give y'all a pathway to a political fight. Hunters, if they're unhappy with something, they come together as a council and then they share their displeasure with how the rulers are ruling. Because it starts with them, and then they can take their argument to the council of elders, and they deal with it on those levels, and then they deal with the ruler on a certain level. So there was a political movement because he was nowhere in this lineage line or anything like that. There was some to be or to reign any particular way. Remember, he was a deputy. Musa was labeled a deputy and in charge, while so-called Al-Bakari II, not first, not the regular Al-Bakari, but Al-Bakari II set sail. Now, when you look at the question here, when we go back to the main question, why would a Musa leave Mali to travel to a new world? The only time a Musa left Mali was to go on a Hajj. And they would cross the Sahara. And they built no more than a canoe. A war canoe would probably fit about 100, 100 Africans in it. And it was pretty much made out of tree bark. So, they wasn't using that to cross an ocean that they've never been or seen before, didn't know the volatile problems in it. So that has some issue. But again, we get the story, and you heard it from Dr. Van Sertima's mouth. The story was told in Cairo. And this is where the Arabs get it and then mention it. Before that, it was never mentioned. But when he's committing his Hajj, he's already the ruler of Mali. He's a Musa. So what happened before that? What are the people in the land, I mean, in Mali saying about Mansa Musa's rule? They have no idea. That's all I'm saying. So we're left with too many questions, and then we're left with too many vague arguments to try to circle back and say, we came before Columbus. We don't have the evidence. We don't have any of that. Now, let me hit play and listen to him.
Evidence. So I've presented 12 pieces of evidence: eyewitness accounts, metallurgical evidence, linguistic evidence, botanical evidence, oceanographic.
All right, so he says that he listed all this evidence. But when we review the evidence, there's the issue with the problem. Now, here lies the problem. No one helped him vet his information. Where was the cross-referencing by his peer-to-peer? He didn't need a peer review from academia, but peer-to-peer to help him see errors in his own research methodology. Who helped him question some of, well, T'Challa and I already answered the question for those who were worrying what a jelle is. It's a griot. If I just would have said griot, then you would have tied it all together a little bit faster, but I was trying to not say that so that people would be more keen to actually, you know, get familiar with it. But yeah, the griot storyteller. And they're critical in West African history because they are passing down stories that have come before them about great kings or rulers in the lands. However, Sertima was not cross-referenced. He was a one-man show. There was errors in his ways, and he claimed to use all these primary sources, but he didn't have the primary evidence to substantiate a primary source. What he did was he appealed to authority of Leo Wiener and other writers and tried to draw comparisons from lookership. Ultimately, this argument is about lookership. At a time where African Americans are trying to write themselves in the history books and fighting white supremacy and Eurocentric scholarship. So no, there was no cross-referencing here. And no, he did not rely on the Mesoamericans. Because if Ivan van Sertima even took a look at Mesoamerican data, he would then set his data aside, which was biased, and dealt with the Mesoamericans. Correct. I'm not charging him with anything but the fact that he didn't have all the information. So he argued, though, that he showed evidence, facts. He labeled it as facts. No matter what we say or try to justify it, we can't sweep it under the rug because he said he had the facts. So we review the facts. And this is how we can come to an honest conclusion that we didn't come, you know, necessarily before Columbus, but no buts. We didn't come before Columbus. We know that we just can't do what we've been doing to other people, and that's critical in history, and that's write other people out of their own history and don't even give them any say. Because had he reviewed that data from the Mesoamerican tip and got into conversations with those paleontologists and archaeologists and all of that, he would have done a lot better. So I say to you today, and to Seneb's point, had he had the information that we have today, he revises that entire book or even dismisses that entire book and rewrites that and corrects himself. But he's not here to actually correct himself. So here's the problem. And I was gonna say this, behind the scenes, but I told him I was gonna wait till we got to public. There's people that are trying to vet his book and substantiate his claims without any evidence, only lookership. Runoko Rashidi and Chris brought this lady up, the Beatrice lady. Now there's supposed to be 2 students of Runoko Rashidi who's supposed to help substantiate the claims that brother Vince wanted me to talk to on Facebook, have a discussion with them, and I refused to have the dialogue until they actually read volume 3. And the reason that I refused to have that dialogue is because there's evidence in volume 3 that they may not even be privy to. I know for a fact that they're not privy to the Remich writing about all the things that they did during their time. And did you know that Ramesses was even at war? Did you know that they had scribes on everything going? No matter what, there was a scribe attached to whatever daily activity that took place transpired. That's what happened in ancient Kemet. In West Africa, you have griots, the Jele. You have them telling stories. You have the culture and the traditional layout of what rulership has handed down, and these stories being told. Who's revered in Mali? Who's revered in Mali? Yeah, it wasn't Mansa Musa. He was not revered in Mali.
Oh, I mean, well, that's what they tell us.
Right. We tend to revere Mansa Musa based on his Hajj, his trip to Cairo, where he went broke and borrowed the money that he just gave away back. And then when he got back to West Africa, he would later die, never repaying his debt.
Oh, just real quick. Oh, no.
No. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I thought this was interesting. He said, this is in Early America Revisited. He said, at this point, I wish to clear up a misconception, or rather to expose a scandalous misrepresentation of my position. I have not claimed and resent being accused of having claimed that Africans founded the first significant American civilization. I have never said so. Aboriginal or Native Americans were here for thousands of years. How could migrants crossing the ocean, save those who came later in a massive movement of millions, totally alter the face of their civilization? Rather, I pointed to specific influences that the evidence seemed to suggest alien groups, however small, migrants from outside can have a significant impact on a native civilization. I just thought that was interesting because, I mean, just to continue to kind of separate, what he was doing versus, what Tariq Nasheed and, of course, the Moors. And then, I mean, to even put in the context, I just want to make it clear that a lot of our great scholars, they were doing everything, remotely. I think I know Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben, they were able, I think, to study a lot together along with people like Malcolm.
John G. Jackson.
Oh yeah, John G. Jackson too. Yeah, and Schomburg, I believe, taught John Henry Clark to kind of put that even in the context. So it appears, just based on what I'm reading, it's supposed to be a hypothesis and maybe more of a beginning, but it doesn't look like something that was supposed to be like so conclusive, just based upon even the dialogue between Van Sertima and Dr. Giap. So it looks like it almost even looks like something that people were supposed to pick apart and continue on, versus it was supposed to be like this authoritative conclusion that nobody can question. I think it was more so him making a comparative analysis between the various head that had certain features, that he made a hypothesis thinking that because a statue looked one way in West Africa and it looks similar to a statue in North America, because and even a third option I'm even thinking of, right? I know genetically, right, the people in North Sentinel Island, they look African, but I think technically they aren't African, right? So there could be some confusion there where you got people
Well, you have what you just mentioned. You brought up genetics, so that is the missing piece for the completion of the anthropolitical argument. Like when you talk about anthropology, remember that there's levels to anthropology. So you got to deal with each phase of anthropology in order to draw an honest conclusion. And that last stage is that key factor of genetics. So, and that was what I was going to bring up next, was to say, and then we get into the genetic analysis of the people, of the Mesoamericans or the South Americans, or however we want to put it. And when we get into that, we deal specifically with the people who have no African ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
Only begins to be people with African ancestry when foreign people bring us to a new world. Because even in our honesty, Europeans introduced maize to us. We didn't actually make maize. Europeans introduced maize to us. And that's something that we deal with. And then some people be like, well, wasn't it maize in Kemet? Who else was creating maize and corn in that nature? Because there was multicolored maize, and then you had yellow maize, corn. So you have to deal with the nutricities of what's actually going on along that timeline. And we're able to deal with that more because we have more information than he did.
I think this, man, like, again, is like a good discussion, man, because I mean, these discussions need to be had, and I'm not just saying with Ivan Van Sertima, but with other books too, because like they want us to come behind them and build on their work. And like, again, I'm holding the book up right now. They came before Columbus, and you mentioned genetics. We mentioned that, when we was talking about Chancellor Williams' book. Now, this book, again, like I'm saying, everybody had to take in the context again. This book was written in 1976. So, again, 1976. So this book is going to have to be updated because, again, the resources and the tools that we have today, the ancestors didn't have. And, you brought up some key points. Book was written in 1976. When was the first time Dr. Ben went? I don't know. When was the first time Dr. Ben went to Kemet? Because I don't think that I could be wrong, but I don't think he went during the 70s. I don't know I can't remember when he started to go to Kemet. You mentioned about, he's talking about the Ramesses and stuff. We know that there wasn't no technology to the 15th century till you get to the Portuguese. You know what I'm saying? So, you mentioned the Jali, which is the griots, and then you mentioned the Remich. You mentioned they wrote on. We know the Remich wrote on everything. They wrote sketch on everything. So, were at that particular time? Were there Egyptologists? I think the Egyptologists didn't come until the 80s.
Nah, man, you had Egypt. Go slow down. You had Egyptologists prior to that. You had Egyptologists early. Why? Because when you get the deciphering of the Metal Nature,
you're right.
His hands, right, and then you already have that field of study that actually takes place when those Europeans became in the early, that early time period to actually deal with that, and that's that they call it the Age of Enlightenment or whatever they call that age, and then therefore that came out of the whole thing. As far as when Dr. Ben was going to Kemet, I would say somewhere around if not the late 70s, then it had to be the 80s where he began to do tours. Around that time, somebody can correct me, or we can actually source that up and get with Reggie. And
Shim Shu said It was in the 80s. Dr. Ben was there in the 80s. So I mean, I'm not. He said the 80s.
We can get with Reggie to substantiate if that was really a big issue, which it's not, to deal with what's going on with that time. So we landed out. Like, these are things that's not even in consideration. And like, you know, we got a djembe drummer on the panel, and there's no and he deals with Mali all day long. Like, that's the Malinke culture. So yeah, and Mansa Musa is Malinke. His mother is a Malinke woman. So we know that too, based on the information. So therefore, we don't hear your story. We don't see your rhythms. We don't get any of these things that you're talking about, but yet you're in Cairo and you're making this world stage announcement to people. There was a political ploy about that. And then we don't even have the writings to substantiate any trip of an Abukari. The second, for that matter, you know, traveling, what he traveled in, what kind of ships? Because remember, first it was 200, one came back. Then it was 2,000. So what were they making these ships out of? Where's the evidence for shipbuilding in the 1300s? You know what I'm saying?
Shawn,
Yeah.
real quick, that addresses the brother Shazbu. Peace to you, brother, and peace to everybody else.
Peace.
That addresses. He asked very good questions in the chat. Have we addressed how many different lanes of scholarship, forms of methodology did Ivan Van Sertima use, and have we addressed all of them? He said there were at least 7. So if we go off the archaeological evidence,
so let me put the subfields up of an anthropologist perspective.
Okay.
So we can get the linguistics out of here. That's a wrap. All right. The archaeological evidence, we can get it out of here. That's a wrap. Right. There's no primary sources because we ain't even got the Arabic scholars showing proof that Abukari II existed, and so on. They taking hearsay from Mansa Musa in Cairo. So yes, we deal with every level of Ivan Van Sertima. You can try to back him up all you want to. Good luck. All right. So you have archaeology.
Thanks, y'all. What subfield would lookership be? Because we kind of just lost past the lookership that he used for these old men kids.
Yeah, we did. We glossed past.
We'll get back to it. Go ahead.
All right. So you got archaeology. All right, that's people and culture of the past. Now, did he study the Malinke traditions? So since you wanna hold on, y'all. Since he won't smoke, because I seen the comment in the chat. So since he won't smoke, did Ivan Van Sertima address the people and culture of the past? Did he deal with the Malinke?
Hey, Shazmu.
No.
I can give you a word right now for the word walk, which is the beginning of traveling anywhere. The first word, give me the Malinke word for walk, because we don't have it. We cannot demonstrate that. I can give you the matter of fact, I'm gonna give you some right now. What I'm asking for is actually a rhythm, because Malinke, that's all they do is play music. That's why I always bring up djembe when I talk about them.
Hey,
hold on.
You gotta say that. Because he never dealt with the Malinke people himself.
Exactly.
It's not his work. He didn't deal with people. So next, biological anthropology specializes in evolution, genetics, and health. He did not use that. Cultural anthropology studies human societies and elements of a cultural life. He didn't deal with the Remech, and he didn't deal with the Malians again. So he didn't use any of these things that's supposed to be in his field of study. These are field. He claims to have used certain aspects of linguistic anthropology, which was incorrect. Very much so incorrect. We're saying that he did not have enough evidence. He relied on Leo Wiener and those other dudes. So we ain't gotta argue with all of that. We ain't gotta argue with all of that. Chesmu just talking like you always do.
So So where does the Kofi Wangara, scholar kind of factor in? Because I mean, the important thing about understanding these anthologies is that I think you got to deal with the collective. So when you're dealing with Van Sertima, you got to deal with everybody in the book, because the one doing the linguistic analysis is Harold Lawrence, aka Kofi Wangara. So I heard you say just throw that away. So and I guess I would have to look up to see,
Yeah, they
where
were
his
trying
work
to
went.
comparison. They were trying to. All right, so look at this is critical here. All right, so when you're dealing with linguistics, right? There's a methodology to draw an honest, to do your linguistic comparisons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who did the comparative analysis with the OMAC or the Malian? I mean, the OMAC or the Mesoamerican language or Arabic.
Donnie, I know who you is. I wasn't even paying attention to your avatar. I know who you is just by the name. I know you be over here all the time. You be over with the Mossy. You be over with on Science with Shawn. So that's why I'm confused. I'm asking you. You said let me put your comment back up. You said Shawn is regurgitating, and if people tell us something, you said, but if certain people say this to y'all, but if certain people say this, y'all don't accept it. So any is really regurgitating. I'm just asking you to clarify that. That's all. I don't know what you're talking about. If certain people say what, and what is Shawn regurgitating?
Language family, or let's go further than that, because I believe the linguistic argument is to deal with Kemet. So it's talking about Medu Neter. So where's the comparisons?
Well,
Look, this is the argument now. They're using one script and then they're using another one, but this information does not become prevalent until you get somebody like Clyde Winters, who does a comparison.
I think Clyde Winters might be in some of his books, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Clyde wasn't even a factor. Clyde is an after the fact.
Okay.
I'm throwing Clyde in the trash too.
Okay. So what about because I guess Kofi Wangara, he deals with Mende, Kono, Kissy, Mandinka, Dula, Malinke, Bambara. I guess he's breaking down the linguistic origin of gold. So that was wrong.
Say it again.
So his linguistic breakdown of gold and comparing it to, I guess, both African and indigenous, and then even I guess he's the Arabic C or GH is generally recorded as K. Okay, so Van Sertima, he didn't actually do he didn't do the linguistic analysis.
Right. So stop. That's key. Okay. Say that one more time.
Van Sertima did not do the linguistic analysis.
But he claimed that he did in that video, did he not?
Well, you can play it back. Because I mean,
he most definitely ran off linguistics in there. Most definitely.
Okay, so he said he did it because I'm looking at African presence in early America.
He do all of that. Hold on, let me.
No, play it again.
Mali, they speak of a king, Abu Bakr II, who wanted to cross the ocean because he felt there was land beyond, and he appears. The Mexicans report this strange black man in white robe appearing.
I have to pause it again real quick because he says the Mexicans report this.
but we have no evidence from the Mexicans reporting this.
And it is also reported by the Arabs because Mansour Musa went to Cairo. He's a Muslim, and he went to Cairo. When he was in Cairo, he talked about, they asked him, what happened to your brother? And he told him that he wanted to cross the ocean and he never came back. And it's recorded by the Arabs in Al-Kashandi and the Masalik al-Absar, fi Mamalik al-Amsar. So that's the documented evidence. Then there's iconographic evidence. So I presented 12 pieces of evidence: eyewitness accounts, logical evidence, linguistic evidence.
Boom. You heard him, right?
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess he produced it, but I mean, you could put something in a book, but not necessarily do the actual linguistic analysis.
Well, who's at the time going to be able to cross-reference or do comparisons to the linguistic work that is necessarily needed in order to draw an honest conclusion? So again, he says, even he doesn't specifically state which Mexicans recall something. They say Mexicans recall. So if we are supposed to go and draw a Mexican source to find out what Mexican reported that they saw a black guy in a white gown coming off a boat, or these white people, where's that at? So now we got to go and we got to get back into pre-Columbian or Mesoamerican history. And then we gonna be right back down the goose chase. What I'm saying is that his field of study was supposed to be anthropology. His field of study. And he did what he did with what he had, but he is specifically in the correspondence with Diop. Can you bring up the correspondence with Diop?
Yeah. Hold on, let me get right to it.
Because there's some crucial, is something crucial that he says in his with his dialogue to Diop that people just gloss over.
Okay, what's that?
So I believe in the opening paragraph or something like that, he's talking about Leo Wiener and primary sources.
Let me double check because I think there's a couple. Hold on, let me see. You said Leo Wiener.
Hey, yo, fam. You again, I'm familiar with you. You be over here all the time. Why you trying to talk reckless tonight is beyond me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Because I didn't even plan on having a conversation with nobody, but it's late as fuck. But I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And if you want to come and speak your piece, feel free. Feel free, my nigga. But if not, then I ain't finna be the one. Somebody finna fall back, but it ain't gonna be me.
Not. You saying Van Sertima's response?
Nah, his core shaking to joke.
Okay, because I'm trying to see. Okay, no, that's Giop responding. Okay. Oh, okay. In this chapter, I use primary sources initially. Initially examined by Leo Wiener, a Harvard linguist. But I subject his source materials to a critical analysis, which has led me to very different conclusions.
Now, hold on. Say that part again for me because people are under a certain impression. And I want to make the argument here because there's a couple of arguments in the correspondence or in the letters that they're talking about because you have white academia trying to make Ramesses II also white. And Diop is fighting that. Diop is fighting that battle. And before that, and now in these other letters, he says specifically, now let me give you context.
Okay.
Dear Professor Diop, I was very happy to hear from you and must thank you for your generous praise of my work. I deeply regret
that you have not seen a copy of They Came Before Columbus, the African Presence in Ancient America. I gather from your letter that your comments are based on the journal I edit and of the postscripts of my book published in the first issue. I had not replied to your letter of July the 17th before because I was waiting to receive the details of the tobacco fine, which you had promised to send me on your return to Dakar. I dispatched a cable to you a day or two ago, and I'm writing you now in the hope that my letter may expedite your response. I await the details of the evidence of tobacco with great excitement. The problem of tobacco in old and new worlds is more complex than it would at first appear. I am sending you a photostat of my chapter on the matter, chapter 2, Smoking Tobacco and Pipes, which I hope you will examine closely at your convenience. In this chapter, I use primary sources initially examined by Leo Wiener, a Harvard linguist in the 1920s, but I subject his source materials to a critical analysis, which has led me to a very different conclusion. As you will see from my analysis, there is the possibility of both an indigenous American and an indigenous African brand of tobacco. See, he retracts the tobacco presence because he's realized that, you know, they're using, what is it, the poppy seed or something like that, that they actually can use in ancient Kemet, could show up as a sign like that. However, these people don't read the letters and they take the tobacco argument and try to make the tobacco claim on Ramesses II. But he says he drew a different conclusion. But he also brings up initially examined by Leo Wiener, because this was considered primary evidence from Leo Wiener. This is where the problem with the sources come into play. When we cross-reference the sources, we don't come to an honest conclusion. So I wanted to say that for a particular reason. Now, look, if we go back, Chris, if we go back a page before that, it says, "Dear Professor Van Sertima," this is Diop to Van Sertima. He talked about the journal. He said the laboratories of Paris, which have just analyzed the mummy Ramesses II, have found nicotine tobacco alkaloid in his stomach. This nicotine served as a treatment against the numerous cavities found in teeth of the old Pharaoh. People don't read. So here we go. Interestingly, most scholars support the fact that tobacco was a plant of American origin, which had been introduced in Africa at a date remains to be specified. Raymond Mooney thinks that this introduction could hardly be dated before the 16th century. Now, we're talking about Ramesses, which is thousands of years before the 16th century. Now, the first conclusion that one can obtain from these facts is the following. If tobacco is really a plant of American origin, then nicotine in the stomach of a mummy of Ramesses II is irrefutable proof that contacts between Africa and America go back to at least 1,300 years before Christ in the middle of the historical period of Egypt, and many historical facts of pre-Columbian civilizations. He's saying to Van Sertima, specifically, the first conclusion that one can obtain from these facts is following. If tobacco is really a plant of American origin, he's specifically saying this. If it is, then you can draw an honest conclusion. However, then later in that correspondence that we just read shows that I've come to a different conclusion now, because they ain't got Skype, they ain't got Zoom, they ain't got the internet. They are doing correspondences that are taking time to travel from one place to another, so they can't get the update real until after the fact. Because there's too much time between there, so the research is not there. So we're drawing a more honest conclusion here to where we can get these Mesoamericans their culture back and their history back, and we need to focus on who we are. And anyone fighting that, you know what I'm saying? We just let them fight that until they can demonstrate. Like Shesman, he just want to talk, and that's all he's gonna do. He's just gonna, troll the chat. And we need to start taking him serious. and let him troll the chat. Because we got Dion speaking for himself, and we got Ben Sertima speaking for himself. And we know based on Ramesses the second time there was wars going on. So we can't say anything about any of that. And we know for a fact that cocaine and the mummy was an issue because that lady was over there snorting coke. That's all you ever want to see somebody do is say, get somebody to leave. You love contention. So and then the other point that we can draw is that we don't have any evidence of Abubakar II traveling to the New World. So the premise of they came before Columbus lies on Abubakar and Ramesses.
Hey.
Okay, let's see where they ended. Okay.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just not finna. Hey, check me, man. Chill out, man. Hey, every time you come in the chat, man, it seems like it's a problem, bro. It seems like it's every time he come in over here, man, he keeping up something, man. Chill out, man. Be respectful, man. Shawn, I don't know if he think you disrespecting him, man. Be respectful for that dude too, man. Just chill out, Shazmo. Just chill out, man. Every time you come over here, bro, it's some confusion, bro. Chill out. We looking at what you saying, man. We looking at what you saying.
And I'm saying I don't
demonstrated some of the other stuff, and you ain't. We demonstrating, we talking, and we combing apart what we got contentions with, you know, and we demonstrate, you know, demonstrate some of the stuff that you talking about in the chat, man.
You just want to talk, man.
Bro, I mean, every time. I mean, peace to Shazmo, bro. I ain't got no problem with Shazmo, man. Just chill out. I'm just saying, I'm just noticing every time he come over here, you know, it's some confusion, and then. You know, and then I don't know if he got an issue with Shawn. Then and there's always something come up with Shawn too, man. Just chill out, man. Be respectful, man. We don't do that over here. We gonna respect each other over here, bro. We gonna respect you. We respect you, Shazmo. We respect you, bro. But just chill out with that in the chat, man.
Hey, Mika said the real Kofi stand up. You see, he got the fist on his avatar today.
Hey, like I was saying, man, is when
saying, hold on, he said when you come over here, bro. Like I'm saying, bro, I'm not disrespecting you. I'm saying peace to you. I'm just saying when you do come over here, I know you don't fool with us, but I'm saying when you do come over here, it's always some issues going on with the chat. You always, I don't know what it is. Like whatever we do, you go left. I mean, that's cool, but bro, just chill out. That's all I'm saying. Chill out, and we gonna respect you. We asking for you to respect the chat. And respect us over here, and we gonna respect you. We not gonna call you out your name. We not gonna do none of that. We gonna be respectful for each other, man. Just chill. Go ahead, man.
All right. So the letters speak for themselves. The evidence speak for itself. We really ain't got to draw and the conclusion that has been made. So if there's a point of contention, or if you're trying to defend some information that is not there, then you would have to deal with the primary sources. So what are the primary sources? The primary sources are, in this case, is going to be the evidence from the Malians, the Griots, the Remech, the Medunecher, and the Malinke language, right? Because they try to draw a cross comparison because of one word that they can see something similar to, but you need more than one word. We all can, you know, because they try to use the Wombas as yam. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta do a lot better than that. So, you know, we ain't making it up. People say that they, you know, like the elders, they say that we're bashing Ivan Ben Sertima's work, but really what we're doing is something that y'all forcing us to do, and that's if we really slow down and peel back the layers, we kind of show you that these people ain't African, that this culture ain't African, that their gods are their gods, and we ain't got nothing to do with that. We didn't come before the Columbus. If we did, we would show it. Our culture, our tradition, our languages, the way that we act, the way that we build things, the way that we leave things behind. Like one of the greatest pieces of the evidence that I like to use against the the Aboriginals is when they be like, well, we were here before everybody else, and then True Historian says something, and then it says we ain't African Americans, and then True show them African being used way before American, and then he show them where they calling themselves African American, and then he throws up the West African and Drike symbols. And then that kills the whole Aboriginal claim right there, because that's showing a presence of West African culture in the Americas. When we go to Black Rice, we show remnants of African culture in the Americas, right? So we should be able to do the same thing in Mesoamerica, right? We should be able to find Andrike symbols. We should be able to find certain cultural aspects of West Africa in he said, boy, you crazy, Pure. In Mesoamerica, we don't see that. What you start to see is the presence of West Africans in Mesoamerica when we began to be enslaved and brought to the New World. Because you're thinking at a time that these people are doing trade and all of these things, they're gathering up Indians that they're bringing to Europe and that they're bringing to the Queen. And they finding out these Indians ain't worth nothing. Like, these people can't do no real work. And then you got diseases and things like that are killing them off. Whereas we've been exposed to certain things, and these things are causing no harm to us. So we deal with all the fields of study to draw an honest conclusion. And what I'm trying to say is simple. If you have a refuting argument, you're really going to have to demonstrate using primary sources from ancient Kemet and Mali. You're gonna have to deal with the with them, and they ain't giving you nothing. We got it in spiritual combat. We know we ain't getting nothing from the Malis. T'Challa, what's that cadence for Mansa Musa?
Man, I've been looking since I can't find it. The only thing you're gonna get about the Malinke people is these hands and these feet. And I ain't talking about fighting either. I know y'all think I ain't even talking about that today. I'm talking about on the dance floor and with these drums. When I say that the Malinke are heavily stooped in music, just like how we rock here as Black people in America, as African Black people, it's all about them 12s banging, yo. It's all about the music. When you call your people over, you finna roll up. What you do? Man, hook your phone up to the Bluetooth. Nowadays.
Get that aux cord.
Let me get that aux cord, fam. That's all you hear. And so what I'm saying is, based off the anthropology, you want to talk about anthropology of people. Yeah, we can, the African presence in America is now, yes, of course. That's after the Portuguese kidnapped us and is bringing us over here. So to mention Tainos, we talking, how you gonna put Olmecs and Tainos in the same conversation? I said, show me West Africans talking about people over here. Where's the masquerade for the Olmecs? Great point. Festival. The name is ceremony. Right. And guess what? We ain't deifying no people from way over here in no West Africa. I'm gonna tell you that right now. That's on that argument. But to speak to, you know what I'm saying? If you feel like, as an individual, if you feel like you need to read a certain piece of information, I say do what you got to do for you as a man, right? Because everybody don't get up and do what they feel they need to do for their body and their mind, and people that say mind, body, and soul. You know what I'm saying? Every day that I do, I'm a whole different human being. So you know what I'm saying? You might not need to hit the bag. You might not need to shadow box. You might not need to, you know what I'm saying, do a few squats and push-ups and all that kind of stuff. You might not need to do all that. That's not what you do. But I know what I do, and I know what the Malinke do.
Hey man, this good stuff, man. Where's the maize in Africa they would have traded? Debate on that continues. Yeah, so I mean, really, well, you got Runoko Rashidi. He going down to Mesoamerica, and he's making a claim, but it's all based on lookership. It's not actual. It's not an actual argument. You know, it's not a scientific argument. It's based on look, see, here, look, see, here. He doing all that all the way to China. He's a well-traveled man, but you know, he has no written work or anything to say anything about. So he's trying to substantiate hyperdiffusionism. I'm not trying to shred Van Sertima. I ain't. That's why I refuse to kind of deal with him from that perspective and just deal with the sources. And if we go back to that article that was written by Olatunji, you know, if we really get back to that point, because he had a point of contention, which is going to be similar to everybody else, and that is the refuse. He refuses to be able to answer some of those questions. Well, he can't answer some of those questions that Black Panther had asked in the past, and questions that I asked today. I mean, recently. You know what I mean? And now he'll throw things out like straw man argument and race traders. You know, in his article, when he's building the straw man argument, because we don't need to be Mesoamericans, right? Our ancestors' experience is well documented. So much so that the Portuguese, the British, the Spain, the Spanish, the Dutch, you know what I'm saying? All these European nations, even the Arabs, got in on how cocky they were when treating us and the way that they treated us. They wrote about it. It's in journals. They created insurance policies behind it, a stock exchange behind it. They knew what they were doing and what they were running. You were cargo, precious cargo. And let me put this on the screen just to kind of heighten it for Chris with a similar perspective. This is how it goes. Now, what I ask is that instead of trying to downgrade the sources of Dr. Van Sertima and others, they present their own actual field research based on archaeology, anthropology, etymology, and linguistics that refutes the work of African-centered scholars on this topic, as well as others. Now, I have a whole problem with that because now you're diminishing people and trying to put the African in front of this information as we are, saying or suggesting that we should appeal to authority. And that these people were African-centered. That's how they came to that conclusion. Well, that if they were African-centered and came to that conclusion, it wasn't an honest conclusion. And then he goes on and says all the things that he actually says here, but none of that is credible. So we don't have any evidence for those claims, right? And see, this is the same thing that was also in the article, which brings up a lot of points of contention with the actual work. So all we try to do is just make sure that our people get the right information. Now, look, the way the ancient people of Mexico designed their cities is based on the ideas that came from the ancient indigenous Kemetu of the Nile Valley of Africa. See what I'm saying? So now how was this so? This is the battles that were, look, Egypt and Mexico. There's a link between the Great Pyramids of Egypt and Mexico. How so, Sway? They built the round mounds in Mesoamerica. The Remich built theirs from scratch. Not around a mound. It's not the same, man. The writing systems that the Olmecs use, see? the hieroglyphs. And if I understand this correctly, I don't think that Olatunji can really deal with the sesh. And he doesn't have a real background in linguistics. But it's all the same stuff. And this is the issue that we have. It's not just him, it's other people. And this fake claim of African centeredism is a cop-out. Because if you had an African-centered worldview, you would know that Diop told you to do something that was instrumental in history. And don't take him at his word. So, Chris, you're on mute if you're about to rock, man. Give me a second. I'm about to.
Okay. I mean, so real quick, I know Uncle's gonna hate to hear this, right? So, what I'm thinking, right? If there was no influence, right, based on.
Hey, yo, Donnie. Now you have to get on the panel if you want to continue talking to me. You saying I'm running, but I answered your question. You said, do I remember Shawn's critique about Dr. Clark? Obviously, I said no. Right, and then you saying I'm running. Like, you're not making sense, bro. You high tonight? The fuck have you been smoking? You tripping? I dropped the link for you. You didn't want to come on. You explained your contention in the chat. It still didn't make sense. Now I answer your question you ask, and then you say I'm running. Like, bro, you must be drunk, dog. It is Saturday night, so I understand if you have had any intoxicating substances, right? But yeah, you got to relax, bro. You got to relax. You're not making no sense. I asked you, what is the relevance of Shawn's critique on Dr. Clark? Why are you bringing that up? Why do it matter? No, I don't remember it, but what is the relevance? Continue. Like, this shit crazy, man. What's going on with you tonight, bro? We almost done though, y'all. We got like 10 minutes left. Let me see. Yeah, got like 10, 15 minutes left on it. And then we're gonna close it out.
Geoff's two cradle theory, the similarity doesn't necessarily have to come from the influence, but if we were in similar conditions, then they could have created similar systems, right? But that could just be another hypothesis that doesn't involve the the whole contact theory. So that's what I'm thinking. It may just be more about being in similar conditions versus having to have a similar system based upon, having to contact, our various ancestors. So it could be, other variables. It could be other options. It doesn't have to necessarily be that they have a similar system because we taught it to them. It could be that they were in similar conditions and created, similar and have a similar culture and have a similar system because we dealt with the European in a very similar way, but that so the premise may have been wrong, but I think based on Geoff's two cradle theory, that may be a better lens or a better explanation on why the similarities exist.
I gotta get familiar with that one.
Yeah,
but I agree. I agree that just because two cultures show similarities, that doesn't necessarily mean one influenced the other. Like the opposite of, if I'm correct, the opposite of diffusionism is I can't even pronounce the word, but yeah, they were isolated, so they had nothing to do with like you. For example, our brother Sertima talks about sun worship, and I think volume 3,
Yep.
either volume 1 or volume 3. Now,
Volume
so
3,
many
right?
cultures have dealt with. Yeah, I think it might be volume 3. So
It's
so
three.
many
It's volume three.
so many cultures have dealt with sun worship. We can't link all those together. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's not necessarily influence that of the reason of why two cultures show similarity. I'm just throwing that out there till Shawn got back.
Oh no,
Yeah.
you
Shawn
good.
doing a beautiful job.
Yeah, all I would say to that is to add to what you were saying, because I like that point. That point is that you know, just keeping it all the way where it needs to be, man, is that people develop things on their own based on their worldview, regardless of what we wanna say. You know what I'm saying, or think or believe. We just don't want to give these people credit for what they did in their own history. You know what I'm saying? That history is their history. They are responsible for that worldview. And, you know, it's going to remain that way to a test of time. Like, we're responsible for our worldview. We tell stories to our kids' kids, you know, about certain mythological things and perspectives of how stuff comes about, right? Like right now, it's like you got Sister Cobb in the chat, right? In BK way, right? When she dropping jewels, she's speaking from the soul of the ancestors when she dropped the jewels. So when she talked about things, she's talking about things that she's familiar with based on where she's at. She's the heartbeat of New Orleans, Louisiana specifically. You know what I mean? Because she's taking you to Congo Square. And she's talked about Congo Square. And then she goes and she pulls up Congo and she goes to the Congo to show the relevance there. She then ties that back to the slave trade and the influence that the slave trade had on Congo Square in New Orleans. And then she talks about the rhythm, the beat, the food. She gets into the other aspects and the avenues of what's going on. Now, how would you know that? Because if you study in the slave trade and you study in African American history and you study in African history, you start to see these things align around people that have an experience that other people don't have. We don't have a Mesoamerican experience. So we can disregard that. We don't have to be the Mesoamericans. Man, they built their own civilization, their own worldview. Our ancestors knew who they were. They told us who they were. Why are we not listening to them? They left us signs and symbols. What did we pay attention to in history? Signs and symbols. The rhythm of the drum. Those signs and symbols gave us direction. And it wasn't in Mesoamerica. It was in West Africa. It has always been there. That's all I'm saying.
So it just looks like the comparison people are drawing is based on, you know, a very communal culture that had an emphasis on being about the group versus the individual. And I can see where people would make the comparison, but I guess this is where I would just fall back on Geop's two cradle theory, whereas people are products of, you know, their conditions. So even though, you know, there's not a whole lot of evidence to argue that there's a connection, but it's just, you know, there's similarities based on the conditions that both groups came out of. So that's why, but I mean, it's interesting because there's so many similarities, but there were still conflicts between the two different groups. So, you know, I mean, just based on what I'm just, you know, observing and reading, I can see how. I mean, it just seems like so often people are making a lot of generalizations, but I mean, if there's more concrete evidence, and you know, Van Sertima talked about, you know, the documents being destroyed, so that you know puts it puts a much harder standard on him, because if he's operating solely off of the comparative analysis, then that makes stuff real hard. And I guess that's an important thing to remember. He's operating solely off of comparing similar rituals and similar statues, and then certain products that people were using. And yeah, I guess I think the main thing.
Can I ask you something, Chris?
Go ahead.
What rituals are similar? Because I asked this for real. I don't ask this to be funny.
Oh yeah, I mean,
no, I'm asking if, because when we say like, oh, based on this similar ritual of these people and these people, like, so let's have a direct, like, real quick, a direct conversation.
Okay, let me go to it. Let me find where.
What specific Mesoamerican culture has similarities with a specific West African culture? Like, let's draw the two comparisons. Let's deal with one culture over here, and then let's talk about how similar it is to anything on the coast of West Africa.
All right, let me see what. Hold on, let me go to it. Let me go to it. This is in this one. Okay, there it goes. Okay, 169. Okay, boom. Go right to it. Talk about the gold. Okay. The language. Let me see.
Keep in mind while you look for that. The reason why we can't just say, oh, these two cultures have a similarity because maybe this culture plays a drum and that culture plays a drum, and they might even be similar in shape. We still can't say that that's a direct, like, connection. For instance, linguistically, if the word in Malinke for walk is tama, which is Taama, which is also a dundumba rhythm, it means to walk. Okay. And the way that dunumba moves, it's a long form dunumba, which means that they use a lot of traveling steps when dancing this particular dunumba rhythm. That's why we refer to long form dunumbas. The number of measures in the music in Western sense, the phrase is a longer phrase than a short form dunumba. A short form dunumba, the rhythm turns around quicker, meaning that you might have, if you were to write the music out in Western notation, it would be maybe 4 measures long. But a long form dunumba, if you were to write it out in Western notation, would be anywhere from maybe 5 measures to 7, 8 measures long. Okay? So when we talk about a direct connection, like ritual and culture, specifically with that area of West Africa, djembe is kicking all the way into Benin, Togo, Burkina Faso area. Like, it's all in there. And we know from that influence to the east, going to Nigeria, we've got the Igbo and the Yoruba peoples. And you talk about anywhere from Nigeria on west back over to, Benin, Togo, into Burkina Faso, we understand that all of those people are a conglomerate and mixture of people. They consider themselves the same, yet different. Right? They're not exactly the same, but they're all relatives. They're close relatives. Very similar in culture. And some of them genetically are actually the same people that have just been traveling back and forth between those, what we call those different countries nowadays. So that's why I asked the question. Give me, what specific ritual can we map to a culture right there in West Africa? Because again, based on a plethora, we have thousands of rhythms. Thousands. Not only do we not hear about Mansa Musa like that, and he right there supposedly, he's Malian. But we don't have not one rhythm out of the thousands for a Mansa Musa. So that's what I'm saying. And then the cultural practice of the Numu with that culture, drum and dance culture, you talk about rituals. Their stories and rituals are going back, dating back. Like, you know what I'm saying? They talking about what their people have encountered. So if we say that they use the connection of rituals and things like that, it's the same conversation with anti-vaxxers talking about they trying to poison us. Who is they? The same day that built the computer we talking on ain't the same day that's giving you the vaccine that's engineering that technology for that. You see what I'm saying? So like we got to get specific in our arguments. Who exactly are we referencing?
Hey man, take Sutek phone, computer, or whatever he using.
Hey, yeah, you watching SETI. You talking about best. Man, ain't no best in no Mesoamerican culture, bro. Put SETI down, man. It's time out for that, bro.
I agree with Sister Kaba, though. We got to teach the people who are unfamiliar, but we just got to slow it. I mean, I think today the conversation, slowing it down. I mean, if we want to draw a critical analysis on the work of Ivan Van Sertima, they came before Columbus. You know what I'm saying?
It's crazy that I guess somebody was in the chat saying that best was in Mesoamerica or something. It's crazy because the research guy just did a video a couple of days ago saying the same thing, trying to make the same connection. These dudes be using these recycled as pseudo claims. This is why I think this concept of replaying these old videos where we've dealt with these situations before, replaying these bitches, because this shit is still relevant today. This shit's still relevant today. Yeah, man. He said it's best in the Mayan calendar because they both had their tongue out. Like, for real. What about Kali? The Hindu goddess. She got her tongue out. She known for that. Is there's a connection there too? Like, you need to just be saying anything, bro. But yeah, it's about to end. We got like about 5-6 more minutes on the video, and then I'm gonna be out.
Because that's something that is often used in our community, then we gotta break it down. And we just don't see where he's winning a point for point analysis in this discussion. Now, if there were some points that he was winning on, you know what I mean, that would require more clarity on, then we could build on that. But there's no, out of his point for point comparisons, like he suggested and touted in that video that he done, it don't stand attested. Don't stand attested. But I just want to let everybody know, man, that what time is it? In about 4 minutes, man, I'm gonna be live on the Mossy. Man, this was a healthy conversation that we had. I hope people learn from it. Those who missed the discussion, rewatch it. We actually dealt with some misconceptions that was the root of a lot of our contentions. I'm sure the conversation will continue to be had if Chris comes across something else. I say Chris specifically because he doing his literature review on a lot of things right now and cross comparison analysis and things of that nature. So we got to give him the due diligence and time to actually go through that information himself and then link some of the other information and sources that are available to him as far as the data to what he has, and then let him draw that conclusion. But we will be along for that ride. We are not the Chickasaw, Choctaw, Seminole, or none of that. We were enslaved by those
That's
people.
what it is. Yeah, boy, it all comes out now.
Yeah. So on that note, man, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show. We about to be on the Mossy Warrior Clan channel in like literally 3 minutes, and I ain't letting Kofi say nothing.
Yes, the hell you is. I'm all I am.
I'm about to kick his ass off this show right now.
And I'm gonna get right back on and kick your ass off the mouse. No, just real quick, man. Just just continue trying to promote, man. If y'all ain't got volume 1, please go get volume 1. Written by Kofi Pice, our research team, Spirits of the Masi. If you ain't got volume 2, please go get volume 2, Spirits from Spirits of Pen, written by Kofi Pice, volume 2. If you ain't got volume 3, go get volume 3, Spiritual Combat. Volume 3, written by Kofi Pice, our research team. And also, we dropped again these educational quiz cards for Black History Month. It's a 54 deck of quiz cards. Go get them. They also available.
Yeah, that was it, man. But we gotta do some more of them cards, man. Them cards is getting gone. Good show. Good show. We will be picking up tomorrow. Earlier. I'm gonna keep doing these late night jumps too, but I'm gonna try to go live earlier, probably in the afternoon sometime tomorrow, depending on if any of the brothers got anything going or not. I'm trying to find Kofi commercial to go out to, but yeah, like I said, man, this shit is still relevant today. A lot of this shit people still talking about, still discussing. It's new people joining the quote unquote conscious community all the time. So we just gotta understand and realize that these conversations have to be rehashed. I know sometimes it's like beating a dead horse, but hey, these conversations have to be rehashed, bro. Hopefully somebody was able to take something away from the video tonight. Donnie said it feels good to meet me. I bet it do, bro. You drunk as hell. You drunk as hell. You gone on that wine. You gone on that wine, my friend. You're gonna wake up tomorrow and be like, man, what the fuck? But hey, man, we'll play part 2 tomorrow. Part 2, I think Sherry's will come up to the panel, and it's a more interactive conversation. But I like this. I loved this. I always loved this show. This is one of my favorite shows. Not necessarily for the information, even though it was good information being brought out there. I'm just joking, Donnie, man. Calm down, bro. Calm down. I told you I'm petty. I like to joke. Calm down, bro. I don't know why you're so serious, man. It's Saturday night. Saturday night, you gone on that wine. You're supposed to be laughing, bro. But yeah. See, you threw me out. Donnie. Yeah. I like this video. This is one of my favorite videos. Not for the information, even though it was good information being put forth, but because of the dialogue itself. Like Shawn said before I cut it off, this was a very healthy dialogue. It was good information being thrown around back and forth. Very civil. I mean, this was a part of the team. This was an in-house situation. Y'all rarely get to see those. Y'all rarely get to see those in-house conversations. So this is one of them. Even though we go, it ain't no echo chamber over here. We be banging on each other all the time. Most of the time, honestly, it's not about no information like that. Like I said in the chat, it's about like a lot of times entertainment, sports, music, art, like shit like that. But yeah, man, I'm gonna start hitting that button regardless of what we talking about. Maybe Shawn start talking that Jordan shit in the chat. I'm hitting that button. He started that we had a Tupac conversation a little while ago. I be stirring the pot, man. No, I timed you out, Donnie. I timed you out. Just so you can take a little breather. And you did. You came right back with the bullshit. No, I'm not. If I owed you an apology, I would, bro. I definitely would. But but don't let's not push it too far. But yeah, I like to stir the pot, man. Other night, on Facebook, I posted that Tupac is overrated, and I mean, I'm not saying that the dude is trash. You know what I mean? I'm just saying he overrated. And I said the same thing about Big, and I was provoked to that by Rob Owen with those New York supremacy posts. Like them New York niggas think they're gonna be able to shit on the South. West Coast niggas think they're gonna be able to shit on the South. Like we ain't got nothing going on. Like nah, fam. I had Black Lion trying to advocate for Pac. I had to let him know that Pac is not a West Coast nigga, bro. Pac is not from the West Coast, dog. He spent majority of his life on the East Coast in New York and Baltimore. You cannot claim him, dog. You cannot claim him. But yeah, I would never fix my lips to say Pac is trash. And that's what I get. This is what I get right here. Because I have my own mind, my own thoughts, and I don't just say what everybody else say. And honestly, this is a lot of people feel like me. A lot of people feel like he's overrated. Who's the king of the South? That's a whole nother show. But you know what? Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. We can either do that tomorrow or we can do the replay of part 2. Or we can do both of them. It don't matter. It just all depends on who got going on or who got what going on. I'll say that backwards. Yeah, he was born in New York. I know he lived in Harlem, and then he had moved to Baltimore for like 3 years, and then he moved to the West Coast. So that's probably what you're talking about, Zion, Baltimore. No, I don't hate questions. It's just you hate answers. You hate answers. You don't want to accept my answers unless it's something that you want to hear. But I'm sorry, bro. You ask a person a question, then you got to be ready for their answer, not the answer that you want. But I'll go ahead and give you an answer. Like when you say king of the South, I don't think there is one king of the South. I think there's multiple kings of the South. I would say UGK is one of those or two of those. I would say Outkast or another two of those. I would say Scarface is one of those. You know what I'm saying? I would say P is one of those because P came with the hustle, man. P revolutionized the game for the South. I will say Ball and G are two of those. So there's a few. There's a few of the kings of the South. I'm not gonna name one dude. You know what I'm saying? There was already a stupid incident over that title between Tip and Flip, right? So it ain't got to be one king of the South. DJ Screw, man. DJ Screw is a king of the South, bro. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of some kings in between. So I went southwest and I went all the way southeast. But yeah, it's plenty of them. It's plenty of them. But you ain't gonna be from New York or the Cali or the West Coast thinking you finna just be allowed to shit on the South like that. Nah, it ain't going down. Not while I'm around, at least. It ain't going down. Yeah, Don Key. I mean, you know, I go with Don Key. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of kings of the South. Because if you say one, then it's like, okay, well, somebody gonna come along and say, what about him? What about this person? What about that person? Luke, Uncle Luke? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I forgot, Zion, you from Florida, but hell yeah. Luke revolutionized the game too. Uncle Luke definitely revolutionized the game. And anytime Luke and the Two Live Crew is around, or you playing a music, you know it about to be a good time. So shit. Hell yeah. Trick was, you know, he had his crown for his time. Now we know we got another Florida guy on here that got his king crown at the moment. Ross. This dude ain't a king, but he from Florida too. I like Denzel Curry, man. I always like Denzel Curry from the time he came out. You from Georgia? Okay. Yeah, that's my area, Tennessee, Georgia. You know what I mean? Chat, that's right there on the borderline. Like where my mom's is living right now in Tennessee, back in Tennessee. She can walk across the street and be in Georgia. Technically, that's how close my hometown is to Georgia. So at this point, we don't even consider going to Atlanta out of town. You know what I'm saying? That's how close this shit is. Yeah, so since you missed DSGB, gotta give Pastor Troy his crown, man. Gotta give Pastor Troy his crown. That's that guy. I was trying to think of that guy from Georgia. Now, I'm a Gucci fan. I love all those Migos, all them. But if we talking crown, I like Tip too. But in the street, one of them that motherfuckers really rocking with, that's loved and respected and accepted everywhere you go. Oh, yeah. Troy in that thing, man. Yeah, but I'm gonna get on up out of here, man. I got more blunts to smoke. We're gonna reload on this tomorrow, though. We're gonna reload on this because I know I can talk about music all the time. I can talk about this all day. But salute, man. I'll be back.
Just read this book and it'll tell you everything you need to know.
There's another N-word we throw around in and out of the black community called nappy. We have taken that word like the other N-word, nigger, and made it a word of adornment. I have heard the word nappy my entire life, which was used to insult, degrade, and hurt someone. This word is a derogatory term that was used in our ancestors to insult people.
Available now.
I love myself.
Same tree, different brands.
I hope you love yourself, because love is only love when you love somebody else.
I think oftentimes when people hear me and see me, they think that I'm a fool. They think that somehow or another I've lost my mind, that I'm not down with the in crowd. They've said that nobody would love me and that I'm an outcast. But let me say this here now. We can be clear about anything. Please let me be clear about this. And I pray that it's received and understood. I don't want to be one of you. I don't want to be one of you weak men, weak people.
For my brother,
I'd rather
Kendrick
die, death is welcome, rather than to call myself you spineless black men.
Side high, I ain't your traditional. Rapper smoking medicinal, stayed in detention. Life is all about principles, cynical ass niggas. Sorry that I offended you. I bring something different while niggas sounding identical. I'd rather drown in a swimming pool than to let you imbecile stop me from topping my pinnacle. Try me blocked by the genitals. Trust me, it's not intentional. It's the difference between a gangster and a criminal. Cause real gangsters can't do Breakfast Club interviews. A lot of you niggas don't own a business suit, but slave for every pair of Michael Jordan tennis shoe. But anywho, got your bitch walking around like she winning pool with no bottoms on, just the top of her swimming suit. What you gon' say when the niggas gon' try to get at you? Them in what army, or you just talking in general? Cause in the end, we all gon' die like them Seminoles, nigga. These niggas weak. I'm fucking up. These niggas weak. These niggas weak. I'm fucking up. These niggas weak.
I look at the sorry state of black men in America today, the destruction of the family, the loss of integrity. When as a young boy, black shot down every day for years without stopping, when I look at what we are as black people, I'd rather be dead than to continue to live against such.
Y'all ain't trying to start a revolution. Y'all looking for a restitution. Niggas kill each other every day and ain't no evolution. My partner shot 100 niggas and it was never proven. We just labeled him a gangster and kept it moving. Let me give you the same outcome, separate shooting. A white man kill a black, we holler persecution. So instead of looting, it's time to find some better schooling. You can act like y'all don't understand when I'm elocuting. Did I stutter, I was never Reuben. Y'all ain't no Black Panthers, you wasn't there with Newton. You ain't Martin Martin, try to better humans. Instead of all these rappers, we need some better students. It's time to rebuild the neighborhoods that we helped to ruin. And the NAACP, y'all need some help recruiting. Fuck a resolution, let's get some retribution. I feel like Malcolm X when he left the movement. These niggas weak. I'm fucking up. These niggas weak. These niggas weak. I'm fucking up. These niggas weak. Yeah. Y'all know what it is, yeah, I said it, nigga. All you niggas laying up with these bitches with no condoms and shit. Having mistake babies and shit, leaving these women to motherfucking raise your kids by their motherfucking self. Yeah, my nigga, I said it. You don't like what's going on in the motherfucking America, leave this motherfucker. When they said we were free, my nigga, that mean we were free to go back where the fuck we came from, my nigga. Yeah, it's a whole motherfucking continent that belong to us, nigga. It's called Africa, motherfucker. What the fuck is y'all talking about? Y'all ain't trying to start no revolution. Y'all motherfuckers spent 10 bands on the motherfucking section in the motherfucking club. 10 bands to build a whole motherfucking neighborhood in Nigeria, nigga. Get the fuck out of here.